Welcome to the MadHouse podcast, a safe place where we discuss the things that have been on our mind. So sit back, relax, as we dive deep down into the rabbit hole to see how far it goes.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the MadHouse podcast. I'm back, the protagonist, my boy Natheeeeze over here.
We back at it.
So, this is what this is our like third week back, so we're feeling pretty good about it and stuff. And this has been a pretty good week for me. Like, I've been feeling real good this week. I've had a lot of high energy. Obviously, I go through my little periods of kind of my lows and stuff. But all in all, I like to think that I've got a lot of things going on in the month of March, and I'm keeping a high energy and I'm moving forward, and I feel pretty good. How you feeling, man?
Feeling good. I feel like I had a good week. I had one of those times when I'm finding myself.
Yeah.
Right? I'm finding that purpose. And so, like, my new goal is to be that purpose-driven person.
Yeah.
Where it's like, hey, I know what I want. Now I gotta get it.
Now we gotta eat.
So, we gotta eat.
Yeah.
If you can tell, I like to eat. If you can tell, I like to eat. Hey. So, hey, I'm feeling good, and that's where I'm at for this week. So I just want to keep pushing forward every day, like they say. Well, not like how they say. You know how my boy says, brick by brick.
Yeah, hey, brick
No.
by brick, baby. Lay as perfectly as I can.
Shout out to Will Smith.
There you go. Shout out to Fresh Prince. I'll always know you as Fresh Prince first, bro. So we'll go ahead and get straight into it. So, as you know, I'll be on Instagram from time to time, and my homegirl sent me a video, and in the video, it was a group of football players, and they're sitting around like in a little. They were just having a discussion or whatever, and one of the guys' moms died, and he was basically talking about some of the things that he did, during his whole depression and everything. And my man looked at him, and he's like, well, bro, why didn't you call me? He's like, our kids, they go to school together, we party together, we go to the club together. Like, why didn't you call me when you were going through your thing? And after I watched the video, I hit her back up. Shout out to Queen, shout out to King. I thought that was a really good topic to kind of talk about today. Like, why do we as men not feel like we can open up and talk to other men? And I guess there's really no easy way, but just to kind of get into it.
That's tough.
I'm a man, you're a man, and I know that we like to think that we have a certain, I guess, view of ourselves. We see ourselves a certain way,
Yeah.
And we like to think that we can handle certain things by ourselves. And, like, maybe it's a pride kind of thing, but I like to think that, when I go through things, I like to think I can handle them by myself. I don't really necessarily need a lot of help. But I think that's been one of my biggest downfalls in not depending on my support groups and utilizing them when I run into these times. That's something that I'm currently working on. And I don't think it's just because I'm a man. It's just because when I'm going through my things, I'm just in them. And, like, I just feel like no one else understands. You know what I mean?
It's definitely because you're a man. Let me tell you. Women have what I like to call the support system, right? And it's multifaceted. They have the girlfriends that they talk to, and they're more emotional, open with their communication. They have countless TV shows, their shows like The View or whatever. They just have a whole bunch of avenues to engage with other women. Not to say that men don't have avenues, but we have less of a monopoly on that communication front, right? So what happens is we have less communication avenues, and then we have that masculinity portion of it that's built into us from when we're younger as men don't talk. We suck it up. We keep pushing because we can't show weakness.
I think that's a really important point, because I was thinking about it myself, and I don't think that we don't have the capability to do it or that we're not intelligent enough to do so. I think it comes from conditioning. And when I say that, I mean our parents raised us a certain way. They can. I'm a parent now, so I can understand the dynamic of parenthood. So our parents raised us for what they thought was appropriate at that time. So you can only teach somebody based off of what you were taught. So our father was taught a certain thing from his father, and he taught us a certain thing based off the things that his father taught him. And I think it comes down to conditioning when we talk about why we don't talk to other men, because my father was never like an emotional person. He was never like I said, I can count on one hand the number of times my dad said he loved me.
Yeah.
Just one hand. That's it. But I can't fault him for that, because.
But you felt the love.
I felt the love, but he didn't verbalize it in a way that I wanted him to.
Yeah.
But that's because he was conditioned a certain way. He wasn't conditioned to do that. He showed his love in other ways. And even when we went through things, he didn't come to me and was like, "Hey man, you know, I'm really having a tough day." He just went through the thing by himself, and like I would just see it on the other side, you know?
Yeah.
So he never like opened up and was like, "Oh, hey, I'm having a real tough day," or whatever. I just saw the stress on his face, and he didn't necessarily have to say anything. So I think it just really comes down more so to the things that we have been conditioned to do, and that's one of the biggest reasons, like currently, why we have trouble conversing with other men and opening up.
So you're talking about conditioning through nonverbal communication.
Yeah.
So we see our father, he's not relaying said issue, but non-verbally we see certain stressors that may be affecting him as a man, but since he does not talk about them, now we are conditioned to say, I want to be like my father because he is my father figure. This is the example that I have seen. This is what I have to go off of. When my father was in situations, he didn't buckle. He didn't talk about it. He just took care of business.
Yeah, and so I'm gonna jump in real quick. So, you said that I never saw the other side. I only saw. So in my mind, this was how it was handled. Like when I saw my dad go through things, I just assumed that this is the way that men handled those things. So you know, I didn't mean to butt in on you, but when I saw him do things, I just assumed that this is the way that this is handled going forward.
So we're basically saying like we saw the cake.
Yeah.
We didn't see him baking.
Mm-hmm.
Like we saw the cake.
Mm-hmm.
It's got icing. It's perfect. Got a name on it and everything. But we didn't see the sweat that he put into that.
Well, hopefully not into the batter.
You know,
but I feel you.
You know what I'm saying? But we didn't see that journey.
Yeah.
Basically, what I'm saying. So I think we are conditioned to operate in the same way. Now, there's also the child dynamic, right? Because we see that from like that father figure, but then as a child, we're also taught certain things that, hey, don't cry, and obviously nowadays it's different.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna say that now. So don't take offense.
Back when we were coming up, this is the way it was.
Don't take any offense to anything I'm about to start saying right now, because obviously I feel a little bit differently, and I don't say these things. But back then, it was like, quit acting like a girl.
Yeah.
I would never say that now. Obviously, I have a daughter, so I wouldn't equate being a female to weakness. But this is how I was.
Yeah.
Stop acting like a girl. Stop being weak. You know. So these are the things that we were taught as a child, and especially from other kids too, right?
Yeah.
So now we are mentally toughened up, right? And we don't want to go to our friends a lot of times because as a child, that child component, we were met with hesitation. And as a child, how do you begin to understand the complexities of being a man? You don't. You just say, "Oh, you're being a girl," or quit whining or crying or this and this. So we are now learning, teaching ourselves, maybe subconsciously, without even realizing it. It's not okay to talk to my friends because he's gonna say I'm acting like a girl.
Yeah.
And this just goes way back, right?
Yeah, and it does go back to when you were children, because just kind of like you hit on, when we were coming up, stop all that crying, don't be a little girl, stop being a bitch. Like, those are the things, and even from your friends. Like, if you legitimately came across a situation, like say you were outside playing, you fell down real hard, and you were legitimately hurt, you're like, man, stop being a bitch. Like, get up and walk that off. I think he got that from somewhere. So someone taught him that, like, hey, when you're hurt, don't show it. Like, get up and walk it off. And like, I used to play football, not very good, might I add, but you know, one of the things the coach would say is, you know, hey, walk it off. Even if you're hurt, hey, walk it off. Or in the Army, like, take a knee, drink water. Like, we don't have time to be hurt. You know, I think Arnold said it the best. Like, bleed. I don't know who said it. Jesse Ventura. He's like, I don't got time to bleed. Like, but it was that mindset back then.
Yeah, we laugh about it, but
yeah, we can laugh about it now because, you know, we're grown, we know better. But as a child, you don't have that level of comprehension. All you know is what you're taught. So we were taught as young men to not be vulnerable and to not open up and to not do those things. So now we just carried that on into our adult life. And an older generation taught it to this generation. Now this generation is going to teach it to their generation. But at some point it has to change. Like, if we just keep on stacking on, you know, what the past generation did, at a certain point, like, there has to be some kind of change for something that you didn't like. Because down the line, the kids are going to be, they'll all be doing the same thing, but they won't understand why they're doing it. Well, you know, hey, Dad, why are you telling me I can't cry? Well, no, men don't cry. But, like, who said men don't cry? Like, oh, my dad said men don't. You see, like, it always goes back to something that I was taught and that we've been conditioned to think. And I think that we're at a time now where we're able to kind of, like, comprehend it, and we're making our own choices and decisions because, obviously, we're parents.
Yeah.
So, I have a child, you have children. So you have a certain way that you look at things and that you want to kind of teach your children to be. You know what I'm saying?
So it's a delicate situation for me for the age that my son is at. So I believe in masculinity, being a strong male, being a leader, right? I believe, but in saying that, I believe that part of being a leader is also learning how to accept responsibility, learning how to be open to other trains of thoughts so that you're not so closed-minded, right? So these are the things I believe. I don't think it's inherently bad to be masculine and be a man and take charge, right? But I am also teaching my son a different path, right? Because I would find myself telling my son to stop crying and whining and stuff. But I decided it's how we phrase things and how we approach things through communication. So now, when I see my son crying when he's hurt, I go to him. I say, hey, stop that crying, right? And then I will go and tell him, because, hey, you need to be a man, grow up to be a man, stop that crying. And then I say, listen, it's okay to cry. I'm telling you not to cry, but it's okay to cry. But what I want you to do is take inventory of the situation, right? Hey, store that away and let's cry later. After we've thought about, is this something we need to cry for? And if it is, you can come cry to daddy and let me know how you feel.
Come cry after.
But it might not be something worth crying for, right?
Yeah.
Prime example. The other day, he was upset because I asked him to do something, and his sister did it, and now he's sitting there emotional like he wants to cry because he really wanted to do it, but he didn't get a chance to do it. And I understand, like, hey, no, you're not going to cry. It's like, you didn't get to do it. It kind of sucks. But this is not a reason to cry.
Yeah.
I said, there are going to be times when it's okay to cry right now. Like, you have an emotional hurt, like something real deep, like someone really hurt you deep. Sometimes it's okay to cry right now. But because you didn't get to do what you wanted to do, right now, you need to process that and say, hey, I need to take control of my emotions. I've been doing something recently, like I said, I've been doing good about trying to move forward, and now I'm having dialogues and discussions. Me and my kids are watching videos. We're having dialogues on our thoughts, and one of those things that we were talking about is taking control of our emotions. How do we feel, and understanding that we are in control. And that is one of the things I'm doing different with my son. Is saying, learn how to control your emotions. It's not that crying is bad. It's okay, but control your emotions and understand why are you crying and if it's necessary.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that I'm doing.
Yeah. Definitely think it's a time and a place for everything. And, you know, I think in general, I think we're on the right track. You know, and I don't think this is a problem that's going to be fixed overnight, because obviously there are things that people feel comfortable talking about and things that people don't feel comfortable talking about. But I think that we're on the right track as far as trying to teach our children that there's another way. Like, there isn't just one set way that this has to be done. You can't cry, you can't show emotion, you can't be affectionate. Like, I guess that's an older style of thinking that was appropriate for the time that it was used. You know, when Grandpa was teaching Dad how to be, like, there wasn't a lot of room for emotion and things like that during that time. But now, during this time, we're in a much better place, and I think that we can kind of start to kind of break those cycles and kind of like change the trajectory of what we think is appropriate for, I guess, raising our children, how a man should be a man. But
I want to interject for those who don't understand. I know we have a lot of different viewers, but from what we're talking about is that aspect of, and I think this is unique to us, that which a lot of people don't like to talk about, but as growing up as a black man back in those times, you had to be a lot tougher.
And that was 40s, 50s when Grandpa and Grandma was,
you know what I'm saying? So I don't want to derail too much. I'm not trying to say that this is only a black male problem, but I do want to stipulate that, hey,
just context.
As black men, I understand why my dad might have been so, I don't want to say stoic, but
he got it from his father, who gave it to him from his father, because in that time period, that was, like I said, that was the only capacity that they could understand to be, because that's what it was.
You had to be tough. So I just wanted to throw that in. I just want people to have context on, because I don't want to, my dad, people are like, dang, his dad was that. Our dad was a good person. I just want to throw that in there so we can understand that during that time, there is a reason that the black man had to be a lot tougher and more.
It had to be a certain way, just, you know, due to times and whatnot. But oh shit.
But how you were saying about in this time, so have you changed anything specifically, like any examples?
I raised my son a little bit differently as well. You know, like, I don't want him walking around crying for no reason. If he's crying for like a legitimate reason, like, I try to comfort him and, like, you know, hey, it's okay, don't worry about it, it's cool. Like when he fell and busted his face, like, that was a legitimate reason to cry, but the whole time I was like, hey, are you okay? Big old, his lip done swole up, his nose all scratched up. I was like, hey man, you know, you're good though, you're alright, you know, you're not missing any teeth, you're good. He was like, I'm okay. I was like, see, that's my boy. It's like, it's cool. He's like, I fell down. I was like, yeah. He's like, why do we fall down, son? So we can learn to get back up, you know? And I try to give him little tidbits of information, but like, that was a legitimate reason. But I'm just trying to change things to how I want them to be now. I don't want to, you know, keep perpetuating this stereotype that, like, men, to be a man's man, you can't be emotional, you can't show anything, because I think, like I said, the greatest man that I've ever known is my father, and he was never an emotional person.
Yeah.
But he's still, in my, you know, my mind, the greatest man I've ever known. And I just want to do something a little bit different. And, like, I think it's important to open up this dialogue between men, because me and you talk, you know, like you'll call me and you'll talk to me about certain things, but you know, our kids play together all the time, you know, like we talk pretty frequently. Like sometimes we talk business, but like sometimes we talk on a personal level, you know, and sometimes like you'll call me and I get the sense that you didn't call just to call, like you're calling to talk about something because you want to say something, you want to vent. And like I can always get the sense, because like it ain't like you're calling me. It's just randomly. You'll just, hello, hey, what's up, bro? It's just the tone in your voice, and I can hear it. There's something you want to talk to me about, and like sometimes I just have we'll be on the phone for like 45 minutes, and like slowly but surely more and more will come out, and I can sense that you're kind of like. Originally, like sometimes it feels to me like you're kind of apprehensive, like you're calling just to kind of like break the ice a little bit. But the more we kind of talk, the more you open up a little bit. And we've had those conversations where you know, it didn't happen until like 20 minutes in, and then you finally kind of like, yeah, man, you know, such and such happened to me. I was like, oh, okay. And then that's when we kind of go into it. So I understand you from that standpoint, because they, like I said, I just understand, like, now, not everybody goes about it the same way. We still have that dialogue. We could still talk, but sometimes it takes certain people a little bit longer to kind of get there. And I know that sometimes that's how you can be. So we may have 15 minutes of just filler talk, of just talking shit about nothing, just, you know, whatever, and then all of a sudden you'll kind of like just randomly haphazardly throw something in there. Yeah, man, like I was doing this, and I'm like, oh, okay. So now my ears perk up a little bit, because I'm like, oh, so he called to talk to me about this. But we wouldn't have made it to that point had I not engaged with you in the beginning. And like, that was more so just to get your comfort level up to, like, now you feel comfortable talking to me about that. And I just feel like sometimes we as men, we don't allow the person to get to that comfort point. Sometimes we want to know, like, right now, like, hey man, you call me, you talk to me right now. Like, not everybody's like that, you know? Like, I'm sure, like, I've called you a few times, and I'm similar. Maybe I don't take 15, 20 minutes to get to it, but sometimes I want somebody there. Like, I just want to know that someone is there and that somebody is listening to me, and that just makes me feel better. And like, you've done that for me sometimes. Like, you've been that ear I can talk into, and you know, like, that's kind of helped me progress.
So I think this is a good point when we transition to, like, we try to keep it on like a problem solution type basis. Like, what is the problem and how can we address it with a solution? So I think this flows into what I wanted to get into as far as solutions, because men are almost 4 times more likely to commit suicide than women. So I think to myself, what we were talking about last time, where if you've been through suicide training, what's the one thing that the first thing they tell you to do? Ask the question. You have to ask the hard question. They call it the hard question. Are you thinking about killing yourself, right? And I think that it plays into a lot of things, because I think that the increased amount of suicides we have as men relates to the problem of not communicating and addressing our issues, right? And I think the solution is to ask that hard question. And it doesn't just have to be about suicide. It's about being a man and sometimes asking those hard questions.
Hey,
like,
bro, are you okay?
Are you okay? Like, when you call me, and sometimes it'll be cool if sometimes, like, if maybe at the end of this conversation you feel like you didn't get anything out of me. Sometimes, like, hey, are you okay? Is there anything you would like that's holding you down? Is there something heavy on your heart? And I think that is a really good point to start at, with asking the hard questions as a solution to that male tension with communication and opening up.
I definitely agree with you, man. And like, I know that we have that generic, hey man, you good? And like, what's like 100% of the time, what is the response when you, hey man, you good?
Yeah. Oh yeah. But see, that's
yeah, I'm good.
But like, that's part of the communication. I think it's in phrasing.
Yeah.
When you say, hey man, you good? What you're really saying to me, you might not agree, but to me, when you ask somebody, hey, you good, bro? That's basically saying, I'm just asking you this, but I really don't want to know.
It seems more like a formality than it seems more like a general term than it does like an actual, like, hey man, is everything going okay? Like, is everything like, are things going well with you, or how are you? Like, hey man, you good? It just seems like it's like that generic, we just throw that out there just to kind of like check the box, like, oh yeah, you good? Yeah, I'm good. And then we're just, we're ready to move on. But I feel like if people kind of like slowed it down a little bit and was like, hey bro, I know that you've been kind of like dealing with some things, but hey man, how have you been dealing with those things, or how have those things been going for you? Kind of show me that you've been listening to the things that I've been saying by kind of bringing up some of the things that I myself have brought up to you. Hey man, you said that you were depressed last week. How's that depression going? Oh, okay. So now you validated me, because now I know that you're listening to me. Like, you're actually like paying attention to the things that I say, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, he listened to what I said. Okay, well, well, now that you mention it, I don't know, man. Like, the depression is still there. I still haven't figured out why I'm depressed. But you've asked a question, and it wasn't just like a just random question, like, oh, you good? It was more so like a more personalized touch on it. And when you throw that personal touch, I think that's really, really important, because now it lets me know that when we do engage, you're actually paying attention to the things that I say, and that you're holding me accountable for those things. Like, you've brought up a situation that I myself brought up back to me, so I'm like, oh, okay, well, he was at least listening. Let me open up a little bit more about that. And sometimes those things aren't easy to discuss, because obviously we have everyday life. Like, I've got my thing, you've got your thing. We both have a life that we're living, but just something as simple as you showing me that you were paying attention to me while we were talking, that I just felt a lot. It's like when you meet somebody for the first time. Like, if I come to you talking about, well, hello, sir, how you doing? If I'm like, hey, bro, what's good with you, man? You just felt a lot more comfortable with me, like, opening up to you like that, as opposed to coming at you in a more formal way. So, I think we have to do more in terms of, like, listening and making things a lot more personal. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. So, what I want to kind of take this to the side a little bit. For y'all who might not understand what he was saying, I think it goes down to active listening, right? So I think we tend to view conversations more as a formality, right? More ritualistic. How do I want to say this?
More commonplace.
More of a ritual. It's like, oh, this is my ritual. I'm gonna talk to you. You're gonna talk to me. We're just gonna go through these motions. But I think we need to be purpose-driven men, right? And say things with intent, right? So we also need to be active listeners, right? So when I'm talking, I'm gonna be purpose-driven. I'm gonna ask you questions. Like, I'm not gonna be like, hey, you good? I'm gonna be like, hey, how are you doing, right? And then we wait for that response. Purpose-driven, direct, intentional question. How are you doing? Then we go into active listening mode, where we listen. And listening goes, if you're in the same room with somebody, watch those non-verbal cues. What is their body language? How are they posturing? What are they saying? What are they not saying? And I think that it's harder to be an active listener. So it's one of those things that it's not as easy. So we maybe try to bypass it. But I think as being a purpose-driven man, you should be trying to enhance yourself, right? But to enhance yourself, you need to expand your mind and say, I'm going to be listening. I'm going to be a critical thinker. Hey, I just asked him about this, and I can see that he's a little tense. This is my friend, and I want him to be okay because I care about your mental being. This is my brother. I love him. He's tense. He seems uncomfortable. I'm going to probe a little more, and then I'm going to listen again. And then I'm going to probe a little more. And eventually, they're going to either say, I'm uncomfortable and I don't want to talk, and they'll completely shut down, which most likely they won't do, because a lot of times they want to open up. And I think that if I keep coming at you and say, hey, I'm listening, I'm here, I understand, I'm looking at you, and I'm seeing something, and the vibe I'm getting is that you're in pain. And I want to take that pain and I want to share it because we're brothers. And then you'll say, hey, you know what? I really want to unload. And he's opening up and accepting me, and I'm going to give it to him. And then don't be so quick to try to issue solutions. Just
I think that's
listen.
That's probably one of the more important things, because I think one of the biggest reasons people don't like to talk, I guess we'll just leave just at men for right now. Because men, we're problem solvers. We always want to solve problems, and like, which is not a bad thing. It's not like I'm saying don't solve your problems. But what I'm saying is, like, sometimes we just want someone to listen. Because in our minds, a lot of times we know the right thing to do. We know we should be doing, but sometimes we just need somebody to listen to us and just to kind of vent a little bit. Like, I mean, obviously don't go crazy. Like, I don't want to talk to you every day and you just complaining about the same thing, but you haven't taken any action. It has to be in moderation, obviously. But, like, sometimes I just want to know somebody's there. They're listening to me. I don't necessarily want anybody to be like, well, why don't you try this? Why don't you do this? I just want you to listen. Like, that's it. And at the end, you're like, okay, man, you know, you've been saying this for about 2 or 3 days now. Like, okay, how about we try to do these things now? Because now we brought the same topic for 2 or 3 days now. So let's try to get past this. Let's move forward.
Now, I want to jump in real quick. And I think this is important to realize. How you said after a couple of days and they're still coming to you, that's when you jump in and say, hey, I've listened and I was your ear, but you've been coming to me with the same problem. Now I'm going to try to say, hey, maybe we can work together to find a solution. And I think that's important.
Let me help you through this.
After.
So let me help you through this. And obviously there are people that you feel more comfortable talking to, and there are people that you don't feel comfortable talking to. So obviously protect your peace and protect that part of yourself, and, you know, decide who you want to invest that piece of your vulnerability in, because you can't do that with everybody. If you're like me or like my brother, you know, sometimes I'm Batman in a situation. I'm always thinking, like, what could this person do with this information that could harm me, you know? But I don't always want to live like that. But, you know, that's, you know, instinctually, that's what I go to. I always just assume that, like, if I share this part with you, you could use it to hurt me, and that's not what I want. So, you know, I think we have to be kind of cognizant about who we open ourselves up to, and kind of how we proceed about doing it once we do. But I think it's important to kind of break that barrier, to kind of like ask those difficult questions, and like to open that line of communication, because this thing won't get better. We as men won't start talking to each other if we don't ask those questions and we don't try to break through those barriers, because some people's barriers they got them walls, they got steel and brick and mortar behind them. Like, some people's walls are going to be harder to break through than others. But I think with the right amount of dedication, that active listening that we talked about earlier, and a little bit of patience, I think we can kind of start to move forward and like progressively make a change for like a safe environment for all men to be able to kind of like open up and talk to one another and just have that open dialogue amongst each other.
Yep.
So I think personally, I think that that's probably the most important thing that we can do, is just to make a conscious effort to break those barriers down.
Yep. That's the thing. Like, as far as solutions, I mean, I think that's pretty good for the day. Like, being purpose driven and being intentional in what you say, and make sure that it's direct so that they understand. Like, I care, I want to know, and also being that active listener, right? And not trying to be necessarily the problem solver all the time, and just being sometimes that shoulder you can lean on. Lean on me
when you're not strong. And I'm gonna... I don't even know. I can't even remember the words right now. Somebody to lean on. So yeah, I think it's a good topic, man. I really think that was important that we talked about that today. And like, you know, if you're out there listening to this right now, you know, reach out to some of your brothers. Like, reach out to those people that you don't talk to very often, and just try to open up that dialogue. Like, just call one of your close friends today and just be like, hey man, don't just be like, hey bro, you good? Like, get in there for real. I'm like, hey man, how are you doing? How are things going here? Like, bring up situations that you've spoken about previously, and let them know that you've been listening. And if they do decide that they want to open up, actively listen to them. You know, like, you know, keep checking up on those things. And if they don't want to open up, don't press it. Like, it's cool. Like, let them take their time. People will open up whenever they want. But like I said, don't let it fall by the wayside. Like I said, the only way we can make change is if we, you know, constantly make a conscious effort to do so and to break those barriers. All right.
Yeah, like we talked about the other day. What we talked about, consistency. When I told you about being purpose driven. Consistent. Part about being that purpose driven man is consistency. And how we move. And if we have consistency in how we move, I think we can break down those barriers. Yeah, and I think that you're onto something there, man. You just be consistent. I'm gonna be consistent. All y'all be consistent. Hey, we really appreciate you guys joining us for the show today. Hopefully you guys tune in next week to hear us talk a little bit more and kind of go back and forth and whatnot. All right. See y'all next time. Thanks for tuning in with us today. Hopefully we were able to give you something you can use and take forward into your day. If you want to reach out to us with any questions, comments, concerns, or even topic requests, links are in the description. Join us back here again next week in the MadHouse. We appreciate you and where you are in your journey in life. And always remember,